nation on earth. God bless you, and God bless America.
Boston Red here with Friday Java, a weekly magazine of political theory, polling, and commentary. It is part of the Boston Red family, and for the hundreds of thousands of people that have joined us over the last 4 years in an exciting period in history called the election of Barack Obama, we introduce you to the final phase, the re-election campaign, two theories, pundits, people that make up this fascinating journey. We are part of the Obama network. For that, we make no apologies. What we pledge to do is give you the facts, unabridged, the history, what body politics is, the most up-to-date theories of political science and psephology. Stay tuned for this incredible ride. Boston Red, peace out. The coffee is brewing. The headphones are on. And we are off to another week of Friday Java, the magazine show that does a little bit of polling, a little bit of politics, a little bit of commentary, everything rolled into one. This is Boston Red on the 26th day of April 2013. As we roll through April, this will be the last show for April. We get ready for May. May will come in. We have a special, incidentally, May Day program on Wednesday. It'll be here on Boston Red and also a little different version on Boston Red and the World. Nonetheless, May Day is the day that recognizes workers throughout the world, and it started in the city of Chicago. It is an American holiday that went worldwide from the Haymarket Massacre. We'll have more then. On the week that was, we'll cover the dedication of the first President Bush, George H.W. Bush, of the George W. Bush in Dallas, Texas today. There, his library, the four presidents that are still surviving, President Carter, the first President Bush, George H.W. Bush, President Clinton, and of course President Obama. They were all there. They had good words to say about GW. So this was a day for good words. GW is not forgotten. He's in, as they say, the history. We'll have today a little bit of President Obama in Waco, Texas, paying homage and a memorial to the people that perished in a place called West Texas. So we have many things going. First, we'll start off with the Miranda rights. That's very interesting here. We talked a little bit about that. The suspect in the Tahar Tresevich, I mispronounced his name, but anyway, nonetheless, he's a suspect that's still alive in the Boston Marathon bombing. There is some polling here. Small majority approve of Miranda rights, and we were talking about this. He was finally given those after many hours of interrogation. Nonetheless, including whether terrorist suspects should be read their Miranda rights, which includes the right to an attorney, the right to remain silent, and how quickly. There has been much recent polling on the issue, but surveys conducted when this debate was last in the news in 2010 found a small majority of Americans favored informing terrorist suspects of their Miranda rights. The most recent survey from pollingreport.com was conducted after the Nigerian, that was the one that had his underwear on Christmas Day in 2009, a failed bombing of a airliner, and also a Times Square bombing in 2010. The polls asked slightly different questions, but the four polls asked about the subject found 51%, and 65% of Americans favored advising terrorist suspects of their rights. And we'll have a little chart down here. New surveys may find Americans' attitudes have changed since 2010. The attacks in Boston may inspire a different response. The Christmas Day and Times Square bombings both failed. So there's really never been a so-called terrorist activity here since the world trades. And that was over 10 years ago. Some Republicans in Congress have pushed the Obama administration to designate Dejanich an enemy combatant and to try in military courts rather than civilian courts, a waste of time. Quantipec survey from 2010. Do you really think the accused Christmas Day bombing attack should be tried as an enemy combatant or as an ordinary criminal? 6% said an enemy combatant. Well, a little different situation. This man, Saranovich, is a U.S. citizen, nationalized citizen. We'll have more on the week that was, and hopefully we'll come up with a little better pronunciation of his name. We pronounce it two different ways. This is from Nate Silver. The gun vote in 2014, will there be an electoral price? At a glance, it would seem they did. The background checks broad support in the public. Meacham and Toomey, he points that out, and we'll read a little bit more of this, of what's going on here. There was evidently an analysis post last week. I think we talked a little about this in terms of who was running and who was not running. Among the 12 senators running for re-election in states where gun ownership were below 42%, all but one, John Cornyn, voted for Mr. Mitchum's amendment. Among 14 senators running where gun ownership is above 42%, all but one, Mary Landrieu, failed to do so. One reason it seems senators running for re-election were less likely to vote for background checks is because facing election next year comes disproportionately from states with higher rate of gun ownership. Some 18 of the 26 election-bound senators were from states where gun ownership is above the on-way national average of 38%. So in other words, around 40%. Meacham amendment, among this group, 14 senators voted against Meacham's amendment, despite gun ownership being under 42% in their state. All these were Republicans, except Harry Reid. That was not a technical deal there. The same data is presented in another way in the chart below. Affects results of a logistic regression analysis on the two groups of senators. Mr. Reid, because of his procedural vote, is not considered in the analysis. The chart concludes that we had reached before. Senators up for re-election in 2013 were more sensitive to gun ownership. Maybe we'll have this chart up, or we'll put it up later. While this provides useful description of how senators voted, it doesn't address the question we posed initially: were senators who voted against background checks taking an electoral risk by doing so? Some states certainly are more resistant to laws that restrict gun ownership needlessly. As much as 80 and 90% of the public supports background checks, like the ones Mr. Manchin, I always call him Meach, his name's Manchin, supported. The Clear Politics people series arguments on Monday as explain the limit. The core of Trindy's thesis is the idea that the public might not view Mr. Manchin and Toomey's amendment quite so literally as the polls imply, and said they might view it as a proxy for the Senate's overall attitude towards gun regulation and gun rights, without worrying so much about the details. Polls have asked the public about their views, broader views towards it, and more equivalent results. Related considerations that the NRA would score the voters, the vote on background check amendments, so the vote for it could harm the Senate's overall rating with them. A counteroffer, Nate Coyne of the New Republic, who suggests the NRA's power to influence election days may be overblown. Elections. Well, of course, Toomey is as far to the right as Tilda Hunn, and only one That was Susan Collins. Of course, she comes from Maine. She voted for Manchin's thing. Of course, he's in West Virginia. This is not necessarily hopeless to particular if Democrats waive the background checks into broad narrative about Republicans being too conservative. Thus, I'm skipping around here, are not in much of a position to capitalize on the vote from standpoint of individual seats in Congress in 2014, to the extent that the issue favored for Democrats in 2013 is likely to be for symbolic reasons, because they're able to persuade voters that it reflects a Republican Party that's out of the mainstream. Well, that's possible. The gun issue is really a false flag, basically, that has people up in the air, and they're really not sure where they're going. Another Nate Silver thing here, the rising approval rate of G.W. Bush received some attention. His presidential library, as we said before. The rating of the elder Bush peaked at 74% in 2000. That was a Gallup poll. Mr. Carter hit 69% in 1999, before drifting down to 52% in 2010. Mr. Ford reached, that was J.L. Ford, 71% in 99. And he was at 61% in 2010. Presidential ratings are always more positive than their job approval ratings. That's from Jeffrey Jones of Gallup. No doubt about that. One of those things that pop out here. And we look at some of these Reagan and Clinton's popularity for much of their presidency and re-election by comfortable margin, had the high approval rating since leaving office than they did in office. And that stands for Hillary Rodham Clinton. She's at, 65%. G.W. Bush's projector is most similar to that of President Johnson. Bush left office with the lowest approval rating of any president. And Johnson worried that he would lose his own Democratic Party's nomination. Bush hovered around, 30%. By 2010, he was at 49%. 49% of Americans approved of President Johnson, with 36%, that's a Gallup there. And in a recent ABC Post poll, 47% approved of G.W. Bush, 50% disapproved. Well, they forgot about it. One exception to pass, Richard Nixon, the only president to resign from office. His approval rating was only 29%. Well, they've pretty much forgotten him. And it hasn't exceeded 40%, so much for the rating of former presidents. One other item we want to touch on here as our time runs down is the issue of African American farmers, a very long struggle. This is against the Department of Agriculture. The Clinton administration agreed in 1999 to make $50,000 payments to thousands of black farmers. This is the Times, and we'll say African American farmers. The Times haven't got that right yet. Hispanics and women later came into the mix. The argument was that African American farmers, because of this bias, couldn't borrow money, which was true. Succession of courts, finally the Supreme Court rebuffed the plea. Instead of an army of potential claimants, the government faced just 91 claimants. It's a very conservative court. They were wrong on the heels of the Supreme Court ruling. Interviews and record shows the Obama administration's political appointees at the Justice and Agriculture Department engineered a stunning turnabout. They committed $33 billion to the compensation, not just the 99